Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into something really special. We're completely rethinking safety education, specifically looking at play-based activities for autistic individuals, and we're drawing from some absolutely brilliant work done by Upstate Carolina Autism Associates. So let's get right into it. I want you to just think about this for a second. What if safety learning felt less like a super strict lesson and more like, well, a game? For a lot of autistic children, teens and adults, traditional safety education can feel just incredibly overwhelming. And here's the real issue we have to tackle. A safety rule that somebody successfully memorizes at home often doesn't automatically transfer over to the real world, like at school, out in the community, or during a sudden emergency. And look, it's not because they aren't paying attention. No way. It's actually because sensory processing differences and anxiety can literally block the learning process. When someone is dealing with sensory overload, those rigid rules they learned in a perfectly quiet room, they just can't access them in the moment. Okay, let's dive into this a bit deeper, because this really sets the stage for the whole picture. The old paradigm, traditional safety, relies so heavily on just memorizing rules. It usually creates a pretty high-stress environment, and honestly, the ultimate goal is just sheer compliance. But then we have the neuroaffirming safety approach, which is exactly what UKA champions. This completely flips the script. It shifts the entire experience to be interactive, totally predictable, and play-based. So instead of just demanding compliance in a vacuum, we're actually creating meaningful, low-stress experiences. And this naturally helps autistic individuals build self-awareness and practical, real-world safety knowledge. Now, what's really fascinating here is the biology behind exactly why that old, traditional method fails so often. It all comes down to what we call a polyvagal informed perspective. Basically, when the nervous system feels overwhelmed, threatened, or just way too stimulated, the brain immediately goes into survival mode. It prioritizes surviving over problem solving. It's literally a biological roadblock. If someone is dysregulated, the learning just completely stops. I mean, you can't possibly process a brand new safety rule if your nervous system is screaming that you're in immediate danger, right? That is exactly why co-regulation, making sure someone feels physically and emotionally safe, has to come first. Absolutely crucial. Effective learning really only happens when things are predictable, visual, repetitive, and tied to real life in a calm, safe state. So the big takeaway so far is that safety is way more than just knowing a rule on a piece of paper. It heavily requires executive functioning. And by that, I mean those complex mental skills like planning, memory, impulse control, flexible thinking, and self-monitoring. People honestly underestimate just how much these skills impact safety. Think about being right in the middle of a stressful emergency. You aren't just passively recalling some rule. You have to plan an exit right then and there, fight the urge to panic, and be flexible enough to change course if your first route is blocked. It's a lot. It requires complex, real-time decision-making. And supporting this with visual routines and checklists, that's the secret sauce that makes these safety skills truly stick.
I really want to pause on this profound idea. Safety is not about compliance. Safety is about understanding, connection, preparation, and support. We spend so much time as a society just demanding that vulnerable individuals comply with loud barking instructions during drills, and we completely forget that real safety starts with connection. When individuals actually feel supported and understood by the people caring for them, their nervous systems can finally calm down. And you know what? That is the exact moment they are finally able to learn, to retain, and to actually use those vital safety skills.
And that brings us to the most effective and, frankly, the most fun solution, the power of play. By intentionally turning safety learning into a game, we are building those essential life skills, but without creating that intense fear that shuts learning down. Let's be real for a second. Those sudden, ear-piercing fire drills, they are stressful for absolutely everyone. So just imagine that anxiety magnified 10 times over. Play totally bypasses that survival state we talked about earlier. It doesn't trigger that threat response. Instead, engaging play-based learning helps folks build up their confidence, practice making decisions, and strengthen those crucial executive functioning skills, all while staying totally emotionally regulated. It's a real game changer. Okay, let's look at some super practical ways to actually do this. First up, we have a safety scavenger hunt. You can make a game out of searching the house, the school, or even your neighborhood for exit signs, first aid kits, or safe adults. Next is a classic red light, green light, but the safety edition. So think green light for looking both ways or walking with a trusted adult, and red light for stopping before touching dangerous objects. Third, we have emergency role play for common everyday situations, like what to do if you get separated in a busy store. And this brilliantly illustrates how simple games build real-world awareness. Instead of some terrifying loud lecture on fires, a fun scavenger hunt builds really sharp environmental observation. Instead of a tense warning about traffic, a movement-based game reinforces body awareness and decision-making on the fly.
Keeping that momentum going, here are 3 more amazing play-based tools. The Feelings and Safety Connection game uses cards to identify emotions, like feeling overwhelmed or scared, and matches them to things that help the body feel safe. Remember that biological roadblock we discussed? This ties right back into managing that, massively supporting emotional regulation. Then there's Community Safety Bingo. This is great. You literally take a customized bingo card out into town and mark off things like crosswalks, fire stations, or police officers. It's fantastic for building familiarity and social learning. And finally, safety story creation, where individuals get to write their own narrative about what they'd do if they got lost. This heavily encourages perspective taking and really reinforces those core safety concepts.
So let's see how all of this builds into our final, highly actionable tool, a personal safety plan. Now, this isn't just some generic one-size-fits-all list. No. It's a customized, tangible, highly visual plan that can be adapted for any age, children, teens, or adults. We're talking about listing emergency contacts, identifying specific safe places, outlining customized coping strategies, and noting the individual's preferred communication methods. Because as we know, verbal communication can easily drop off during times of high stress. It also includes specific sensory supports. Having all of this physically mapped out ahead of time, it totally empowers the individual and provides a clear, super reliable roadmap before an emergency ever even happens. Now, let's zoom out for a second and look at the bigger picture. Safety isn't just some burden meant to be carried by the autistic individual or their family all alone. It's a shared community responsibility. It literally takes families, schools, healthcare providers, and first responders all working together to create truly inclusive environments. For example, if you're in the Upstate South Carolina area, joining UCAA's NeuroConnect program is just a phenomenal step. They provide the exact kind of education and connection that makes all of this possible. You can visit upstatecarolinaautismassociates.com or just call or text 864-835-8409 to learn more about bridging that gap between care and community. Which brings us to our final question for this explainer, and I really want you to take this thought with you. Are we building safer rules, or are we building safer communities? Because as we've seen today, rote memorization without nervous system regulation, it just doesn't work in the real world. The real breakthrough happens when we prioritize connection, play, and emotional understanding over strict, rigid compliance. By turning safety lessons into engaging neuroaffirming experiences, we aren't just teaching the rules, we're building lasting confidence and the supportive community networks that truly keep people safe. Thank you so much for learning with us today.